Let's
Good
begin our count.
morning. Begin agad? Agad-agad. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela and we are the Castros.
Happy Thursday to everyone. Thank you for joining us once again. And sopas. And
Na
some
kinakain
bread.
natin kanina pa.
And
Super
coffee
sarap,
for this morning.
mainit-init pa.
Oo. Perfect combination yan for a brunch. Okay. Ano ba meron tayo ngayon?
Marami tayong nangyari na naman, no? Of course, yung aside dun sa usapin nila Maris Racal, which is ayaw mo mag-usapan. Ayaw niya pag-usapan. Of course, yung incident sa West Philippine Sea sa may
Yes, oo. Yung incident, the water cannoning incident.
Yung second impeachment against Vice President Sara Duterte.
Is this kay Attorney Nery Colmenares?
Yes, he is the legal counsel ng mga nag-file ng case file ng impeachment case laban kay VP Sara. And ano pa? Marami pa.
So let's move on and we're serving you news in a countdown.
All that before your second cup of coffee. This is Brunch.
Now let's begin our countdown with a supposed meteor shower. Some residents in Visayas and Mindanao were stunned as they watched a bright stream across the sky. But those are actually not a meteor shower. The Philippine Space Agency said the objects are likely space debris, such as those involving the defunct rocket stages or satellites that re-enter the atmosphere. But it adds that those cannot also not be attributed to recent rocket launch debris.
Wow pa sila.
Hindi, maganda rin naman kasi ang view. Ang ganda ng view. So, diba? See, tignan mo. So, kaya meteor shower o hindi, may makita ka something that's not ordinary. It's a cause for celebration sa iba.
Pero syempre, we have to remind them na kung halimbawa ay makita nila yan up close and personal, wag nilang hahawakan kasi probably may mga toxic substance pa yan like rocket fuel, 'di ba, or radiation. So, yun din ang ang PhilSci, din ang mga sinasabi nila dun sa mga community within that area. Wag nilang hawakan.
May alien dyan, di ba? Para may bago tayong kaibigan na lalabas sa isang capsule.
If I'm not mistaken, kasi ito yung debris doon sa rocket na na-launch ng China nung March.
Hindi. Also, you have to remember, madaming testing ginagawa in North Korea. Di ba? With their space program. Supposedly, that's what they're trying to say. Na we have a good space program.
Usually naman, di ba, pag may mga nalo-launch na rocket, may mga falling debris naman talaga. Ang mahirap lang kasi, yung malaglag sila kung halimbawa may community or yung...
Hindi.
Ano ang tawag? Not community, pero mayroong nangingisda doon sa area.
The rocket launches, meron yan, perimeter area yan, wherein nakakalculate saan babagsak yung piece of the rocket. In other words, yung casing ng fuel. So the capsule,
pero
the flight capsule...
sometimes kasi due to different elements like wind, nabasa ko yun sinasabi nila na pwedeng may mabagsakan, which is, that could lead to, di ba?
Pwede, pero that's why when they launch rockets, meron perimeter area, meron na danger zone area na like kita mo yung kay Elon Musk, when he launches rockets, he mayroon siyang big property na kung saan niya gagawin. So if ever man magkaroon ng wind, i-assume niya, let's say 5 kilometers of headwind na papalo sa isang rocket, the least that a piece of the rocket can go through is 5 kilometers away from the launch site, meaning walang matatamaan.
Ang mahirap lang din also, di ba, na ito nababasa natin tsaka napapanood natin dun sa mga documentaries na napapanood natin, Diego, yung space junk. Di ba, marami daw yan. Ever since na nagkakaroon ng mga activities sa outer space. Kaya hindi naman nila makuha-kuha.
May mga satellite videos na pinalabas ng NASA about 2-3 years ago showing yung kalat na naidulot ng mga space program. Kasi when they're done with a space station pala or they're done with certain equipment, hinahayaan nila to float around space.
Yes. So it's been there for years.
And then sinasabi kasi ng NASA, meron tinatawag silang natural collapse when it just re-enters on its own time. Okay. Good luck sa inyo.
Alright, let's continue with our countdown. Ranking 9th is South Korea. South Koreans are calling for the resignation of their President Yoon Suk-yeol after the shocking and short-lived martial law. They staged a rally in Seoul and emphasized that Yoon and his ministers should leave their post immediately. Opposition parties have already submitted a motion to impeach the unpopular conservative leader. Meanwhile, the Foreign Affairs Department are not discouraging Filipinos from flying to South Korea for tourism purposes. They said that Filipino tourists should be aware of the current political situation in the East Asian country.
Dalawang panig yan kasi yung panig ni President Yoon, sabi niya, most of the people in his government are conspiring with North Korean elements. Pero di ba, as we all know naman, may back channeling that constantly happens within the North and the South, trying to thresh out a peace agreement. Pero kiniklaim na hindi daw yun ang ginagawa nila. So, the other side naman will say, well, he's trying to cling on to power because ang daming issues that are hounding his presidency. Diba? So, this martial law was intended to try to suppress that.
Pero come to think of it, sabi nga nila, when you look at it in a different perspective, na-highlight tuloy yung unintentional South Korean democracy. Yun ang sinasabi nila. And talagang nagkaroon ng check and balance, diba? Yung separation of power ng legislative nila at saka ng executive. Kasi nga, dahil hindi pumayag yung mga sa Congress, diba, na hindi sila...
Well, most democracies naman or republics have that check and balance. It's just a matter of if the loyalty
Dito sa Pilipinas.
It's just a matter if the loyalty of the Congress is to the people, to the party, or to the nation. Diba? Yan ang naman
diba?
yun. You have to remember, diba, ang miscued loyalty nila sometimes is to the character. In other words, yung loyalty nila pupunta sa presidente,
sa
not the office of the president. Diba? There's a big difference between the office that represents the father of the nation or being loyal to the person himself.
Ayun na nga. Pero yung on a lighter side naman, yung mga Filipino, na-worry sila, bakit kung nagtuloy-tuloy ba yung martial law, hindi na namin mapapanood yung mga Korean novela.
Ay, hindi naman ganoon. Kasi nasanay lang tayo sa martial law natin sa Pilipinas, what happened.
Sa kanila, 3 hours lang.
No, ang martial law naman kasi dyan is just a few other, like for example, additional powers na nagagrant sa presidente.
At saka pag hindi gusto ng nakararami ng mga mambabatas nila, pwede lang bawiin.
It's not necessary din naman mawawala ang Korean serye nyo. Hindi. Iba po yung modern day martial law kaysa nangyari sa atin before.
Pero yung mga OFW doon, yung mga nakatira doon ng mga Filipino, mga kababayan natin sa South Korea, sabi nga nila, nalalaman nila yung mga nangyayari doon sa kanila through their GC, yung group chat ng mga Filipino doon. Sila nag-update sila sa isa't isa para mabigyan sila ng
Na-worry pa sila dahil yung mga may BTS pa daw nasa military service pag nagkaroon ng martial law, you're called into service. Di ba, you're in service, you're called into kung ano man yung, like yung isang BTS member ata, he said with
don't
training.
Ask me about BTS.
No, he's a trainer. Parang he's a trainer right now.
Kasi di ba sa South Korea naman, na pagdating mo ng 18 years old, mandatory yan. Kaya yung ilang mga K-pop stars o yung mga South Korean actors, di ba? Si Rain kilala natin yan. Di ba? Na nag-military
Di ba they tried to parang pass muna sa BTS, wag nyo na isama sa military service. They tried to amend certain provisions, pero no daw. No.
Alright,
okay.
Let's continue with our countdown.
President Bongbong Marcos orders the health department to promote healthier food options. Marcos said this would address malnutrition and stunting through the consolidated efforts. The president met with health officials and other concerned agencies to discuss strategies, initiatives, challenges. He added that the government must boost the National Nutrition Council to help LGUs prioritize nutrition.
Kasi 'di ba, even naman in other administration, napag-uusapan na 'yan yung kahalagahan ng first 1,000 days.
At saka in general kasi hindi tayo friendly, hindi tayo nutrition friendly country.
Di ba we have a lot of processed food,
no, I mean,
instant.
Most countries have that, but what I'm saying in terms of awareness, for example, you go to the US, you go into a restaurant, the waiters will ask you, do you have any food allergies? Are you allergic to gluten? And then sa menu nila nakalagay, this has gluten, this has nuts, this has components of peanut butter kasi baka bawal ka. This has high cholesterol, high sugar. Wala tayong labeling. Whereas yung si Jovi, di ba si Jovi Francisco had a report before, QC is starting to do that. Quezon City is starting to label, asking the restaurants to give you at least, at the very least, a calorie count.
Pero syempre, yung mga kababayan natin na alam mo na, nasa marginalized community or sector, wala din naman silang option to ask, 'di ba? Kung ano yung kailangan nilang, alam mo yun, ilaman sa tiyan nila pag gutom sila. Like mga noodles, tas lalagyan na lang ng kanin, chichirya, uulamin. So yun nga yung sinasabi ko kanina, yung kahalagahan ng first 1,000 days. Lagi naman pinopromote yan in any administration. Dahil importante naman talaga yung yan yung vulnerable stage ng isang ng bata, yung pagpapalaki ng magulang sa loob ng tiyan. Very kumbaga importante kasi diyan yung brain development, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Yung growth ng isang bata. Kaya pinopromote nila na nasa sinapupunan pa lang upon conception yung prenatal care ng mga magulang. Kaya sa mga barangay health center, 'di ba, sinasabihan nila yung mga buntis na pumunta kayo dito para may libreng gamot, may libreng vitamins para sa mga buntis.
I read a report nga on why Asian countries have a different diet from Western countries. Asian countries predominantly kasi are third world class countries. Ngayon, third world class countries don't have access to protein-rich food. So therefore, ang ginagawa ng mga bansa na ito, like us, we access carbs.
Rice.
And if you all know kasi carbohydrates are the basic fuel of a body. Diba? You need iron, you need vitamin C, you need all the other stuff. But without carbs, none of your organs will work. So siguro, thank you na lang sa Diyos, we were blessed with a lot of supposedly rice. Diba? So China, Philippines, Vietnam, diba? Madami tayong rice. So yun ang nag-balance out. If you go to the US naman, bihira ka maka-order ng rice dyan. Bibigyan ka ng malaking serving ng meat because predominantly, protein-rich countries naman sila. Oo.
Dito din sa atin, 'di ba? Nabanggit mo na rin yung mga pagkain na 'yan. Medyo nakikita din nila yung increasing number of people or yung mga kids with obesity. No?
Yeah.
So nakikita din yung stunting, obesity, yan isa sa mga problema ngayon. Kaya pinapaayos yung mga nutrition guide natin dito,
yung mga
especially
bata.
dun sa mga bata sa mga public school, 'di ba? Bigyan sila ng magandang option sa canteen kaysa yung mga chichirya. Kaya ngayon ang canteen, even public private, bawal na yung mga chichirya
Kasi ang dali sabihin, ang problema kasi mahal kasi ang
Yun nga
ang fresh and healthy food. It's the other way around because walang storage cost ang health and yung storage cost ng mga unhealthy foods is cheaper because preserved yan.
Oo, kahit i-store mo yan ng 6 months,
Yung fresh
1
fruits
year.
ka, if you were the one selling it, you'll order
You
it.
have to consume it right away.
Oo, you have to consume it right away. And you have to double your cost para if ever hindi man makonsume ng lahat ng nasa inventory mo, at least the ones you sold, mabawi na yung total cost mo. Kaya it's a sad state of affairs.
Ito, tulad
but,
itong sopas.
We're
Healthy
dealing
na ba to?
We're dealing with things like that. In general, there's no such thing as healthy and unhealthy food. The term is healthier. Is it healthier?
I think this is healthier kasi this has gulay.
For example,
Vegetable, sopas.
kung may butter yan, sabihin mo hindi healthy. May evaporated milk yan, hindi healthy yan because those are processed foods. But you could say it could be healthier dahil linagyan mo ng carrots, linagyan mo ng cabbage. So you enriched it with So yun ang right word. The healthier version.
All right, coming up. What is China's version of the recent incident in the West Philippine Sea? Let's find out.
And another impeachment complaint has been filed against Vice President Sara Duterte, but this time from which group and on what grounds?
We are just getting started, mga kapatid. More of our top 10 news when Brunch returns. Keep it here on One News. morning. You're still watching Brunch here on One News
And it's
with
time-
our brunch,
sopas and some bread. And now it's time to greet some of
Sarap
our
ng
brunchies. Hello daw from Migs Abron, kay Juan Miguel Abron. Ralph Domingo, close pa daw ang mall, kaya watching brunch muna. Siguro nakapila si Ralph sa mall and watching us on his mobile phone. Kasi MMDA guidelines yan. Malls are opening either much earlier and closing earlier or they open later and close later. Para hindi nagkukumpul-kumpulan ng tao na pupunta sa mall.
Oo, tsaka yung traffic din.
Oo.
Batiin ko lang din
Wait
yung mga
lang,
nasa
meron pa dito.
YouTube.
Sam
Meron ka pa?
Pokemon Go, good morning daw sa atin lahat. Naglo-laundry daw siya. Si Alex
Pinapakinggan niya
Fuentes,
tayo.
good morning kay Alex Fuentes and kay Bart Bartolome. Good morning,
Tawagin na natin sa pangalang.
Barbie. Barbie daw.
YouTube naman, YouTube viewers natin si Geraldine Balolong, Takumi, Ronald Maxtay, Summer Cabrera, si Oscar N, JN Ramos, si Gary ko, sabi niya, Diego Angel, what matters most is you're enjoying it.
I agree with that. Especially in a country laden by financial issues and income.
Pero
diba?
kasi problema yung health naman yung...
Hindi, ano mo yung health mo if you don't have access to food na lang. Sometimes, di ba? Sometimes
Kesa mamatay ka sa gutom.
Oo, mahirap ka. Itatawid mo na lang sa gutom mo. Crackers or rice and salt. I've seen families, rice and soy sauce.
Diba? Yung mga ginagawa kong stories before.
Which is not healthy. We're not condoning, but di ba, if you need to survive.
Totoo. Tapos, batiin ko lang din, yung nasa YouTube pa rin, si Mina Benales and the rest of our Jessie Medes
See you later.
family. Who else? Si Tita Daisy, Tito Naldi, Tito Nito Cancio, nanonood sila sa atin. Si Tita Esther Abaya, VJ, and Ate Ice, nanonood din sila sa atin. Alright, let's continue with our countdown. Placing at the 7th spot, 13 Filipino surrogate mothers were sentenced with 2 years of imprisonment in Cambodia. The Pinays were found guilty of cross-border human trafficking after the Cambodian court found out that they were not forced to become surrogate mothers. Surrogacy is also illegal in our neighbor country. The Justice Department is coordinating with the Cambodian government about the mother's offsprings. Justice Undersecretary Nicholas T. said there is a possibility that the children will be sent here in the Philippines.
Ang isa sa pinakamalaking concern ng Cambodian government ay dapat yung mga bata ay malagaan. Ayaw nila mangyari kung papakawalan nila yung mga bata sa atin ay ibigay sa nanay at mabenta ng nanay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yun yung
it's
fear
still
nun.
illegal there in Cambodia, pero there are still agencies daw that offer that services. Pero normally, kaya unusual daw ito dahil mga Filipina yung nahuli. Normally daw, they get their own, from their own country, yung mga magsusurrogate.
Illegal ba? Kala ko illegal.
Illegal,
Yun nga.
illegal.
Yun nga, that's what I
Still
know.
illegal.
That's what I know, it's illegal. Surrogacy is not yet widely accepted naman eh. Pero ang issue kasi dito kaya daw naging 2 years, technically mas mahaba pa daw dapat ang sentence. May mga certain circumstances daw that mitigated their sentence na kinonsider ng court kaya napaiksi.
Kasama
Mga iba daw,
doon is pagbubuntis nila, habang nakabuntis.
there are other circumstances daw na of the arrest, circumstances of the issue. Sometimes kasi for 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years na eh. Pero they considered certain aspects of the case kaya naging 2 years.
Sabi nila dito, the women are not expected to serve any jail time until giving birth.
Oo.
Yun ang sabi nila. Okay. So
Kasi-
pero hindi naman sabi nga din sa report natin, hindi nila nilinaw kung anong ng court kung anong gagawin din sa mga bata kapag kapanganak nila.
Pero stress pa rin sa mami yan dahil alam nila pupunta sila prison soon. So nakakarga na nila yan.
Oo. Tapos yun din ang sinasabi nila doon sa upon their investigation dito sa mga 13 Filipino women, sinasabi nila parang
Hindi
hindi
sila
daw
napilitan.
hindi to napilitan. Talagang intention nila is to get pregnant and sell the baby.
Poverty, that's
Oo. Pero yun ang sinasabi naman sa atin, on our side, baka daw biktima ulit sila ng human trafficking.
pwede man you get pregnant, tapos pa-adopt mo yung baby. But just to get pregnant to sell, that's medyo off.
Oo. Pero meron daw incident doon din sa Cambodia na may mga nakulong din dahil nga dito sa surrogacy na issue. Pero hindi natapos yung jail time nila because yung pangako na alagaan nila yung bata.
Yung bata.
Yung ganon. Tapos meron din yung clinic doon, Australian clinic yun, if I'm not mistaken, na nag-run ng operation for surrogacy mothers doon. Nakulong din yun pero sa 18 months. So I guess siguro kung illegal yan, tapos tuloy-tuloy pa rin, may mga nag-o-offer pa rin ng services. So baka it's high time na amend nila yung law, bigyan nila ng mas bigger punishment.
Actually, hindi. Kasi most Asian countries, ang focus nila are drugs. Diba?
Sa
These are
Cambodia.
these are issues that could be solved through other means. Pero just to give a stiffer penalty to women giving
Pero
birth.
kasi,
The act of...
But the problem there yung children eh.
Oh, hindi. Ang magiging issue is the act of surrogacy.
Kawawa naman yung mga bata.
How does the court, ang problema kasi sa Cambodian courts, how do they determine daw the difference between the act of surrogacy and selling the baby? Ngayon, if you're caught selling the baby, yun ang parusahan mo. Pero the act of surrogacy, how do they determine that? Mas lalo lang justice system in Cambodia is not as also efficient as the others would like it. Parang tayo, may deficiencies tayo in our justice system. That's why most of the lawmakers are apprehensive to enact the death penalty.
Pero yun, kawawa ako sa akin talaga pag ganito kawawa yung mga bata. Kasi for sure, these mothers, hindi nila planong magkaroon ng baby dahil ang plan dyan is to sell the baby. Tapos bibibigay sa kanila, so force sila alagaan yung mga bata. Kawawa naman. Alright, sige, let's continue with our countdown.
Moving over to our top 6, the Commission on Audit flags the Office of Civil Defense for several pieces of equipment that were unaccounted for. In a report released, the COA noted several semi-expendable properties missing during its physical inventory. For one, in the OCD Region 2, the COA found that there were missing laptops amounting to 207,000 pesos. The OCD, however, said the equipment have already been accounted for after the COA brought it to their attention.
May nakita rin daw sila dyan yung mga, mga supposedly donation for Turkey nung victims ng earthquake doon.
Na hindi umabot.
Sabi nila, sabi ng COA, first tranche ng donation nila na gano'n na ipadala na, successfully delivered there. Yung pangalawa, because sinabi daw ng Turkey, di na nila kailangan. So, na-hold. Pero sabi na ibinibigay naman nila or binigay na doon sa mga mas kailangan. Okay, let's continue with our countdown. Going to the 5th spot, the Philippines and Japan held a dialogue ahead of their historic Trilateral maritime consultation with the United States. Delegates from the two countries reviewed progress in their bilateral and multilateral cooperation with the U.S. Both sides also discussed the latest developments in the South China Sea. The Trilateral consultation will take place this month in Tokyo, in which the three countries are expected to address China's growing assertiveness.
Yan yung emerging alliances between Japan, Philippines, and the U.S. Which is supposed to be a good, moving forward, no? A good point of leverage pag nagkaroon tayo ng negotiations next year. Why do we say next year? It's because we still have to ascertain ano ang magiging stance niya, the erratic President-elect Donald Trump. Although it's
Sabi naman nila, most likely wala naman daw magbabago sa alliances.
Walang major alliances magbabago.
Foreign,
ang magbabago lang is ano ang form ng support from the US. Kasi although standard ang alliance natin with the US, ang nagiging stays, some presidents are friendlier in terms of financial assistance. Some are friendlier in terms of giving discounts when we purchase equipment. Some will give actual equipment. Iba-iba ang paraan nila. So we will see kung paano nga si President Donald Trump. Kasi he has a policy, although friendly sa Asia siya, sa Indo-Pacific region, they have a policy, America first. So malamang babalik tayo sa, will they start giving out again second-hand equipment? Or sell it at a discounted price. Kasi that's what they did before sa PNP. I remember long ago, namigay sila ng mga helicopter.
All right, let's continue with our countdown. Now on our top 4, the National Security Council has dismissed China's claim on recent incidents of harassment in the West Philippine Sea. Here's a report.
China has once again used its water cannons against Philippine vessels. On Wednesday, BRP Datu Pagbuaya, a vessel of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, was under attack. The BFAR ship was at sail 16 nautical miles from Scarborough Shoal. In this drone video, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel can be seen chasing the much smaller boat of the Philippines.
10 meters!
In another video, the crew of BFAR vessel can be heard barking instructions at each other, a way to steer clear of China's attacks.
Banti, tirahan yung radar. Banti mo pa, tirahan yung radar.
Moments later, the CCG became more aggressive.
Collision, starboard side. Sir, malapit na sila, sir. Collision, sir. Starboard side.
The Chinese deliberately sideswiped BRP Datu Pagbuaya. From the air, the aggression at sea was more evident. The Chinese Coast Guard ship rammed the starboard side or right portion of the BFAR vessel. The impact was so powerful, the friction of steel on steel can be heard. In another incident on the same day, the Chinese also rammed a BFAR vessel off Escoda Shoal. The railings of BRP Datu Roma Penet was flattened by the collision. No less than President Bongbong Marcos was disturbed over Beijing's recent illegal actions in the Philippines' exclusive economic zone.
The president actually already knows the incident, no? And of course, he expressed his concern dahil bakit may ganito na naman nangyari, no? Merong nga ramming.
For the Philippine Coast Guard, China's latest aggression was an overkill. The PCG is still assessing the damage the ramming incident had on BFAR vessels. No Filipino personnel was hurt from the encounters at sea, but Manila and Beijing have started trading accusations. The China Coast Guard claimed it was Filipino ships that dangerously approached its vessels. It also warned Manila to immediately halt its infringements, provocations, and inflammatory actions. If the Philippines does not stand down, the CCG said the country will be held accountable for all consequences arising from such behavior. In an interview on The Big Story, National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya dismissed China's claim. He said this is an attempt on their part to change the narrative.
We should not, the Filipino people should not believe in what the PRC is saying, because time and time again, they have shown that many of what they're saying are not entirely true.
Let's talk more about these incidents of harassment.
National Maritime Council spokesperson Alexander Lopez is now on the line. Good morning. Can you hear us okay?
Good morning. Good morning. Am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. This is Angela and Diego Castro. First off, your reaction to these separate incidents in the West Philippine Sea.
Yes, good morning, Angela and Diego.
Yes po. Yung reaction niyo po dito sa dalawang magkahiwalay na insidente dyan po sa West Philippine Sea.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate na meron na namang sa Tagalog, gilian, in two areas. One in about the Masinloc and one in Escoda Shoal. Ang ginawa lang naman natin, ang gobyerno through the Philippine Coast Guard and BFAR vessels, aside from doing our maritime patrol in the area, we sent our vessels there to support our fisher folks. Dadalhan natin sila ng provisions and fuel so that their stay in the area will be prolonged. Hindi yung matagal na tapos konti pa yun, uuwi silang kukonti yung na net nila. So basically that's the directive also of our president to support our fisher folks.
So what we saw kasi po sa video, yung banggaan, water cannoning, ano po bang nangyari right after? Or ilang minuto or ilang oras po tinagal po nitong insidente na to?
Yung pagpunta kasi natin doon, pag even actually our conduct of patrol, minamonitor ng China yan. Expected naman natin yan, no? Kasi yan ang gusto nila gawing narrative na they control the area, they own the area, which are all entirely not true. And in our course in proceeding to Baltimore Masinloc, again, to provide provisions to our madaming fisher folks na nandun, ang hinaharang nila ito nga yung mga vessels that will be providing provisions. So papunta pa lang doon, actually malayo pa, around 60 nautical miles from Baudi Masinloc pa lang, dinikatan na yung ating Coast Guard and BFAR vessels. They shadowed it, binuntutan, tapos they fired the water cannons. At hindi lang yun, nang naabutan yung ating BFAR vessel, sinight sweep and binangga pa. And ganun din nangyari doon sa Escoda Shoal. Sa Escoda Shoal naman, the Coast Guard received a report through our fisher folks na they're being harassed. So aside again, while they're doing the patrol, they decided to proceed to the shoal para again to provide the provisions. Pero again, En route to Scholar Shoal, ito na, hinarang na sila, and snipe sweep, and even rammed them in the side.
Yes, it looks like marami po nagsasabi kasi na nag-escalate yung paghaharas sa atin ng Chinese Coast Guard and also in the means of harassment from ramming to water cannoning. May instance nga po ron yung flares na sa Air Force natin or Navy planes. Is it time you think to rethink another approach to ensure na yung safety, of course, safety ng mga personnel natin?
Definitely, especially with the passage of our two laws, the Maritime Zones Act and the Archipelagic Sea Loans Act, we even encouraged our fishermen to go back there kasi atin yun. And that is one way of asserting our claim in the area. Ang kung titignan nyo, nagpalabas ng narrative yung China.
Yes.
Tayo daw ang nag-approach, nag-aggressive approach sa kanilang mga law enforcement vessels. Pero that's why we conducted a press con and showed pictures and video that will debunk their narrative. Pinapakita natin ito sa video na yung sinasabi nilang tayo nag-approach, ay actually sila nag-approach, they did aggressive maneuverings, ramming, side sweeping. So we're just trying to tell the general public here and abroad na sila yung nag-escalate ng situation.
So, time and again, President Bongbong Marcos has always been saying na we should always resort to peaceful means, diba, to resolve this issue. Pero what else can the government do aside from, sending diplomatic protests or, accepting all the statements from different countries, a supportive statement from different countries? What else can the government do?
We should admit actually that the China, they have that escalation dominance because of their power, because of their might. Kaya nga they're working on the might is right principle. As against us, we are working the principle of right is might. So what we're trying to do is documenting everything and then showing pictures and videos and showing to our traditional allies, newfound allies, and even like-minded nations na this is what China is doing. The behavior of China is not acceptable. It is contrary to the international order that is rules-based. So that's where we're working on. We are very clear ang directive ng ating presidente na the only acceptable way of addressing disputes or conflict is through peaceful means, through diplomatic channels and mechanisms. So again, nakikita mo naman disparity. It's against David Goliath. So no-brainer to, no-brainer.
Yeah, do you think it's now time to discuss the option of at least having escorts along our incursions into the West Philippine Sea? Should we have talked to Japan, maybe Australia, kung ayaw pa natin gamitin ang US, in terms of just escorting our smaller ships as we go to our resupply missions and whatnot?
Actually, that has been asked several times already in the past. But again, our position is these activities are purely Philippine activities. And we can still manage actually, kaya pa naman, hindi naman palagi, meron talagang pangilan-ngilan, may nangyayari. And one thing good about China and the Philippines naman, especially for example in Ayungin Shoal, may nag-uusap naman tayo, and sometimes the talks between these two countries are reaping naman good fruits. Like for example, the past three resupply missions sa Ayungin, nothing untoward incident happened. May pangilan again because it's Scarborough is Scholar Shoal, but then again, our Department of Foreign Affairs, of course, our operating unit, the Coast Guard, the BFAR, will be coming up with the reports and everything, and then we'll be submitting it to with the President, to the Foreign Affairs Department, and then for the department to file the appropriate measure, whether it's diplomatic protest, or the marsh, and that's the purview now of the DFA. Again, we are working, we are addressing these challenges in peaceful, rational way.
Oo. Balikan ko lang po yung yung nangyaring water cannon incident na pinakita po yesterday. Kumusta po yung mga personnel na nasa loob po na nakatanggap nitong water cannon ng Chinese Coast Guard?
Yeah, actually even before they set sail, na-brief na natin ng na these are expected. These are the things that you must expect. So be ready for it, and so it happened. So basically, they were ready for it, and they positioned themselves na they will not be physically harmed. So pag nandiyan na yung high pressured water, so they just hit themselves para hindi sila directly tamaan ng mga high pressured waters, and kung babanggain man, of course, they need to free themselves from the point of impact. So alam din nila how to go about it, and they are expecting the worst things that can happen.
All right, thank you so much for your time. That was National Maritime Council spokesperson Alexander Lopez.
Thank you very much, Jela and Diego.
All right, let's move on. Sitting at the third spot is about the armed forces of the Philippines. President Bongbong Marcos reminded the AFP to stay loyal to the Constitution and to protect our sovereignty from other forces. Mobile journalist Julie Baisa with the report.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has reminded the armed forces of the Philippines to always uphold international law and defend the Philippine territorial waters. Marcos made a statement during the oath-taking ceremony of the newly promoted Armed Forces of the Philippines generals and flag officer.
In defending our waters, we must uphold international maritime laws, deepening our commitment to regional peace and cooperation. By fostering coordination amongst nations, we can safeguard stability while advancing our collective interests. Diplomacy rooted in strong legal foundation is our most effective instrument in navigating these endeavors.
PBBM pointed out that as stewards of national defense, the AFP bear the solemn responsibility of ensuring the security of the country's land, seas, skies, and even cyberspace. It could be noted that just last week, a Russian-attacked submarine surfaced in the West Philippine Sea. PBBM earlier described it as very worrisome and concerning. Aside from this, the President also mentioned the AFP's role in providing humanitarian assistance and disaster response during calamities.
In the wake of severe tropical storms Christine, Nika, super typhoons Leon and Pepito, your swift and coordinated efforts saved many, many lives. These actions remind us that the AFP is a force of compassion.
As the country faced different challenges and increasing frequency of natural disasters, he urged the military to remain steadfast. Marcos also reiterates his administration's commitment for the AFP.
Mabigat man ang inyong sinumpang tungkulin, marami mang hamon ang kailangan harapin. Makakaasa kayo na ang buong bansa ay kasama ninyo, nagdadasal para sa inyong kaligtasan, sumusuporta sa inyong mga hakbang, at umaasang maglilingkod kayo ng may katapatan sa ating bayan.
Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, We're One News.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. May dalawa pa tayo. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Brunch here on One News.
Pahabol lang si Ronald McStay. Si Garrico, of course, sad reality nga daw. Si Oscar. Of course, si Tasha at saka si Marisol nanonood din sa atin today. Okay,
Alright.
let's continue with our countdown.
Going straight to our top two. The Philippine Statistics Authority has found no records for Kokoy Villamin. Now, that was a suspicious name that appeared on the confidential fund receipts from the office of the Vice President. Lawmakers said the alleged Kokoy Villamin also has varying handwriting and signatures in the receipts. The PSA earlier found no records for Mary Grace Piatos, another name that appeared in the OVP's receipts. And the saga continues.
Yes, so let's continue with our countdown. Still on the top spot is Vice President Sara Duterte. She's facing her second impeachment complaint this week. The group behind the complaint pleaded to the lawmakers to act independent from President Bongbong Marcos and vote based on their conscience. Here's the report.
Impeach Sara now!
The group Bagong Alyansang Makabayan has filed the second impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte this week. The complainants include Bayan Muna Party List, Gabriela, Bahaghari, ACT Teachers Party List, as well as groups of teachers, students, government and private employees, healthcare workers, and other civic organizations.
Sa araw na ito, inaakusahan namin si Vice President Sara Duterte ng pagtataksil sa tiwalang ito.
Earlier this week, Akbayan Party List endorsed a civic-led impeachment complaint against the Vice President based on 3 grounds. In their version of their complaint, Alyansang Makabayan only used one ground, betrayal of public trust. This is centered on 3 reasons. Number 1 is the VP Sara's alleged abuse of discretionary powers in spending over 612 million pesos of confidential funds from 2022 to 2023. The second reason is VP Sara's supposedly lack of transparency and accountability. Alyansang Makabayan accused the Vice President of mucking the audit process by inventing fake liquidation documents bearing signatures of non-existent personalities like Mary Grace Piatos. Their third reason is VP Sara's supposed failure to recognize the Oversight House Committee that deliberated her office's budget proposal.
Pwede naman kami magdagdag ng marami pa. Pero the betrayal of public trust, yun encompasses everything kasi merong tiwala ang publiko sa'yo, tinaksilan mo yun. And that is for us one of the highest, if not the highest, treachery ng isang public official.
Some lawmakers earlier said they don't have enough time to tackle these impeachment complaints. This is also on top of President Bongbong Marcos dissuading lawmakers from prioritizing the impeachment raps against his former running mate and now fierce critic. However, Alyansang Makabayan pleaded to lawmakers to act independent from the president.
Umaapila kami sa mga miyembro ng mababang kapulungan na bumoto ayon sa kanilang konsyensya. Hindi ayon sa kanilang partido, kung hindi ayon sa pag-weigh nila sa kung ano ba ang tama at o mali sa ating bayan.
This impeachment complaint is a challenge to Congress to show its independence, to show that it can stand on the side of the people kahit ang presidente iba pa ang sinasabi at pinapanawagan.
Former Senator Laila de Lima, who is also the spokesperson of the group that filed the first impeachment complaint, echoed their statement. She said the Filipino people showed to PBBM that they had enough of VP Sara. The House Secretary General said they will send the 2 impeachment complaints to the office of House Speaker Martin Romualdez. It will be submitted then to the House Committee on Justice. Mobile journalist Kyla Macantan, we are One News.
Yun, the word kasi sinabi ni Attorney Nery Colmenares, former Congressman Nery Colmenares, betrayal of public trust encompasses all other grounds for impeachment. It makes sense naman kasi dahil under betrayal of public trust, when you plundered the people's money, that's a betrayal of public trust. When you threaten to kill the president, you're betraying the public's trust because you're supposed to act yourself and conduct yourself with higher moral character. Diba? So ang question gusto ng marami, if you're doing this, bakit hindi na lang siguro nag-amend or nag-consolidate
Yes,
yung
isa
dalawang
na lang
forces
sila.
to have one stronger complaint?
Oo. Kasi nga yung sinasabi ng mga legal experts, di ba? First, doon sa complaint na kung saan spokesperson ng Coalition of Complainants si Senator Laila de Lima, napakarami daw ng articles of impeachment na tinutukoy doon, even yung hindi pa siya Vice President, yung EJ case, tapos eto nga, yung sinasabi na, yung doon din kila Senator Laila de Lima, yung betrayal of public trust, kasama din doon yung pag-alis niya during the Typhoon Karina. Tapos eto nga, yung sa grupo naman kung saan ang kanilang legal counsel ay si Attorney Nery Colmenares, nakafocus lang nga doon sa betrayal of public trust.
Well, we understand naman kasi there are different political aspects to this, political sides to this, di ba? Iba-iba ang pananaw ng iba-ibang grupo. Yun lang nga sinasabi nila is if your intent is to really impeach the Vice President, then the best way to do it is to have a very strong impeachment complaint na informed and
Saktuhin mo
substance.
na.
Kasi kung yung goal, kasi mukhang they don't have the numbers to go the 103 needed para mag-transmittal sa Senate, dadaan sa Committee on Justice to, which will check if it's informed and substance itong complaint is pasado, di ba? Ang problema nito, pag haphazard ang paggawa ng mga complaint mo at hindi nyo lang pinag-isa at pinalakas, baka hindi umusad to into in the plan on the floor para pagbotohan, di ba?
Pag hindi daw umusad yan, mapapanis yung impeachment complaint, tapos merong 1-year immunity doon against sa person na
unless may alam sila na hindi natin alam na may numero, may ginagapang na numero 203.
Basta ang alam lang natin ngayon, doon sa impeachment complaint na final ng grupo kung saan spokesperson si former Senator Laila de Lima, this was endorsed by Congressman Sendanya, nakalimutan ko yung apelyido niya. Tapos yung pangalawa dito kila Attorney Nery Colmenares was endorsed by Makabayan Bloc.
Franz Castro ba yan?
Oo, Franz Castro, Congresswoman Arlene Brosa, sa Congressman Raul Manuel.
So, isipin mo, kung pinagkaisa nyo yung complaint and then you have this congressman endorse one complaint, then you have already 4 or 5 congressmen endorsing a complaint. Di ang habol mo is 98 na lang. At least may nakitang ibang congressman, uy, may 5 na. Baka sama ako dyan.
Basta sinasabi ni former Senator Laila de Lima, mas maganda daw, mas maigi kung ang ginagawa nilang issue yung timing at legal napakahaba ng proseso, pwede na daw nilang pabilisin doon sa pangatlong option, which is yung boboto na kaagad yung 1/3 of the Congress, hindi na dadaan sa committee level.
Articles of impeachment will be sent to the Senate for trial. Sabi ng iba kasi, election season pa naman next year, pero it's been done. I mean, na-abort nga yung impeachment, but we went through the process during the time of former President Joseph Estrada. I think he was impeached around November to December, no? Correct me if I'm wrong. And then na-abort siya, kaya ito yung nagka-EDSA 2, supposedly EDSA 2 at that time. So, if the Congress at that time saw na election season pa naman ng 201, midterm elections sa sana, if they try to do it at that time, meaning nakita nila na kaya pala, basta may numero, kaya rin naman daw gawin ngayon. Ang magiging problema, pag umabot sa Senate to, we all know na matagal-tagal ang process sa Senado.
Okay, so let's get more insights about this, Diego.
Alright, we have a bagong Alyansa Makabayan Legal Counsel, Attorney Nery Colmenares. Good morning, Attorney. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Good morning.
Yes, Attorney, let's get right through it po. You have one ground daw for impeachment and this is betrayal of public trust. Ano po ang naging reasoning behind na isa lang ang ipa-file yung grounds?
Drop yung call, sayang. Pero yun pinag-uusapan natin dahil of course numbers game ito pagdating syempre sa Senate, although alam naman natin na kung sino talaga yung mga kaalyansa doon ni kaalyado ni Vice President Sara Duterte. We don't know also kung halimbawa umabot ito after the election. Aabot pa kaya? After the election may iba yung face ng ng Senate.
Hindi, kasi pag nag-transmit na sa Senate yan, the moment Congress transmits the articles of impeachment to the Senate, meron time frame wherein they have to try the case already. Baka kasi kung hihintayin pa natin ang next makeup ng upper house, it'll be out of the time frame. I don't know, ha?
Okay, ito balikan natin
we have
si
back on the
Attorney
line,
Nery Colmenares.
Nery Colmenares. Good morning, Attorney.
Hi, good morning, Diego. Angela, good morning
Yo.
sa viewers po ninyo.
Yo, attorney, diretso na po ako. Meron ko po kayong one ground of sa impeachment, which is betrayal of public trust. Ano po naging dahilan na one ground lang ang final nyo?
Well, conscious naman kami sa time constraints, no? So, para sa amin, one ground lang. At para naman mas mabilis madesisyonan ng mga kongresista kung i-endorse o hindi ang impeachment complaint. And pangalawa, mas madali kung umabot sa Senado, sa trial, mas madaling i-resolve. Kahit isang buwan, tingin ko, mariresolve na yan. Ano? Kasi kaya naman yan ng mga senador kung sakasakali.
Oo. Before we, bago po natin pag-usapan ulit po yung inyong pag-file ng impeachment complaint, yung reaction nyo po muna doon sa meeting ni PBBM with some lawmakers last night na according sa PCO is a fellowship that was scheduled prior to this impeachment filing.
Well, I take their word for it. They say na prior naman. So, they can always have Christmas fellowships naman. Pero we're confident naman that the members of Congress will decide according to their conscience, will decide according to the principles of accountability and transparency, and of course, will decide according to their role on to function as legislators.
That's
So,
right.
tingin ko they will exercise naman on the merits ang pagdesisyon nila dito, and whatever meeting or fellowship na ginawa nila will not affect the merits of the impeachment case.
Yes, Attorney, I'd like to ask, since dalawang impeachment complaint to, yung isa from the group of former Senator Laila de Lima, may chance po ba na any of these complaints will get the one-third votes needed para matransmit na kaagad sa Senate at hindi na po kailangan umabot sa Committee on Justice?
Yeah, it's possible kasi they've been holding hearings na for the Good Government Committee. Mga 8 or 9 hearings na yun. They've seen all the evidence. Kaya nga nahirapan kami doon sa impeachment complaint namin kahit isa lang. Kasi we have to pour over about 600 to 700 pages of transcript. Sa siyam na hearing na yon. Tapos yung mga dokumentong sinasubmit pa, yung mga acknowledgement receipt na may Grace Piatos, lahat yan. We had to really carefully scrutinize them.
Right.
And hopefully, malakas naman. Kaya nga isang betrayal of public trust lang kasi mas madaling ma-prove ito dahil binis namin sa hearings nila yung lahat ng result ng hearing nila. Kaya I don't see any reason bakit sabihin nilang walang substance, walang ground. Sila sa kanila galing yung they mentioned a few times that these are impeachable offenses na.
Right.
So, we're very confident we'll get the votes naman sa House.
Attorney, I'd like to ask, meron na ba kayong count as to possible ilan congressmen might want to endorse this para mapabilis pa?
Wala kami. All we need is at least 106 votes. So, wala kaming bilang naman. We leave it to the members of Congress to decide, no?
Okay.
And of course, the senators to also decide on the basis of their conscience and their legislative function.
Opo. We've seen and heard po yung statement ni Senate President Jesus Cordero saying na mas maigi, hindi na muna sila magsalita yung kanilang mga co-senators dahil they will be serving as judge if ever magkaroon ng trial. But here you are, meron po si Senator Bato de la Rosa saying na what's the use of confidential funds if you will divulge where you're spending, mga nagsasalita po na ganun. Have we talked to senators already?
Well, I agree with the Senate President Jesus Cordero na wag muna mag-preempt ng mga senador ang boto nila, especially since hindi pa naman nila nakita ang ebidensya Hindi pa naman nila nakita ang complaint So, kung may judgment na sila, edi may problema tayong malaki. Pangalawa, hindi alam siguro ni Senator De La Rosa na there is a DBM, DILG circular on the use of confidential funds. Hindi nakalagay doon na pag tinanong ka, paano mo ginastos ang confidential funds, sabihin mo secret. Secret, di ba? Hindi, mawawaldas na lang ang public funds natin kasi ang mga agencies, hingilan ng confidential funds, hindi na ma-audit. Kahit maglagay ka dyan ng peking resibo na Mary Grace Piatos, million, mawawaldas. The senators approve the budget. They have the power over the purse. Binigay nila sa Vice Presidente ang budget niya, ang confidential funds. dapat they will take affront of the fact na hindi in-explain ni VP Duterte sa kanila kung paano niya ginastos yung pera na binigay nila. Para hindi totoo yung pag-confidential fund, hindi ka mag-explain, hindi alam ni Senator Bato ang circular at ang batas. Nakalagay sa GAA, confidential fund shall be disbursed according to the joint circular. At nakalagay sa joint circular, hindi pwede yon. Can you imagine? Medicine. Bakit siya naging confidential fund? Ba't hindi mo siya nilagay sa regular budget? Kasi ayaw mong i-audit kung sino yung binigyan mo ng medicine? Goods. My God, goods. Ilagay mo yan sa regular budget mo. Wag mo ilagay sa confidential funds. Anong goods ang necessary for surveillance or intelligence work? Di wawaldasin na lang ang pondo just because it's confidential. Mali si Senator Bato. I hope he reads the circular. I hope he reads the GAA. For him to say na pag confidential fund, alam nyo ba pagkano ang confidential fund? Almost more than 3 billion pesos. Eh pag hindi i-account yung 3 billion na yon, sasabihin nila na confidential kasi bibili ng bahay ang mga may confidential fund, bibili ng kotse. Tapos sabihin nila, secret.
Secret kasi
diba?
confidential.
That's not allowed. That's not allowed.
Okay, unfortunately, we don't have much time. Marami pa kaming gustong itanong sa inyo. But before we let you go, we'd like to greet you a very happy birthday yesterday. We heard from our guest coordinator. It was your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday po, sir.
Maraming salamat, Angela at Diego. Thank you very much po.
Alright, thank you so much, Attorney Nery Colmenares.
And former congressman as well.
Yes.
All right, and that wraps up today's episode of Brunch.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro. He is Angelo Castro III. We're One News, all sides, all the time.